Hello everybody, welcome to the first episode of Sunday Night Live of the month of November in 2025. I hope everybody is doing well and has had a great weekend. I have had a mostly very relaxing weekend, apart from this morning when my daughter decided it would be absolutely hilarious to make me walk across the meadows in Edinburgh as fast as humanly possible, which, given that she is 15, very nearly 16, for her that's a decent pace. For me, at 50 years old with a blood disorder, not so fast. So, yeah, I'm still, I'm not fully recovered from this morning, let's just say that. It's not her fault. She was just trying to get me to church on time. And we only got there a couple of minutes late, which is okay. But yeah, it was it was a painful experience. Let's just say that. Now, I'm hoping you guys can hear me and see me because YouTube has just given me a no data warning, which is a little concerning because everything looks good in OBS, which is weird, and we don't have any drop frames, so it should have been sending consistent data, so that's strange. Anyway, it seems to be fine now, so there may have been a small moment there without any signal. But we will kind of ignore that and just continue going for now. We've got an upload speed of nearly 3,000 kilobits per second, so I'll take that. That's 3 megs a second, which for streaming is reasonable, and it's enough for what I need to do. So, and it's more than I had in the previous studio, so I will take that. So yeah, I'm going to ignore the fact that YouTube basically said we had no connection. So anyway. Let's see, Billy was first in the door, which is his favorite place to be, followed by Ron Figura, and then followed by Tony Stringer, who says, I am happy to be awake. Well, I am happy that you are happy to be awake. I'm very happy to be awake as well, because by the time I got home from church after the sprint through the meadows, it wasn't really a sprint, it was just like very fast walking, I was wasted, exhausted, and had to go to bed. So I went to bed for about 3 hours this afternoon. And I'm okay now. Apart from the fact that my legs are sore. I'm okay. But that's mostly because I'm just out of condition and a bit unfit. I could be definitely fitter, for sure. So we've got Dave here as well. He says, for some reason, I was just practicing barking like a chicken in the D minor scale. Life is good and hello all. Interesting. Didn't think that A, chickens were melodic, and B, certainly had never heard of a chicken barking. But okay, I thought that was kind of reserved for dogs as opposed to chickens. I thought they clucked. But okay, I'll take that. Paul Morgan is also here. Chris Maragner is also here. Kyle Draduziak is here as well. Rich Cresswell is here, my partner in crime for all things songwriting challenges. And who else do we have here? Premeditated plan. That's going to be Keith, if I remember correctly. Don Oliver is here. Mike and Venus are here. Just Bob is here. And I think I have reached the end of the chat. We've got 16 people here. I did chuck about some adverts to see if we can drag a few more people in here. For the last show, we actually were one person short. I went back and looked at the data. We were one person short of breaking the attendance record for a Sunday Night Live. That's last Sunday. And then for the Wednesday show, that also tied the record for highest attendance for a Songwriting Simplified. So that made me happy. So we haven't quite broken the record yet. I would love to break the record. So for those of you that don't know what the record is, the record for Sunday Night Live currently stands at 35. And I would love to break that, and then I would love to set a new record and then start looking at breaking that record too. That would be awesome. And then for Sunday Night Live, for Songwriting Simplified, we tend to get much lower attendance. That's more like 25. So that is the record for that show, 25. And we tied it, both shows last week. Which, given it was the results of the Halloween Songwriting Challenge, I'm not surprised we had a bit of a bigger audience, because, people that were involved wanted to be here to see if they'd won. So I totally get that. D-Sound Recording Studio is here as well, and said hello, and then retracted saying hello. And has reposted it. There we go. He said, they say hi from D-Sound. Well, hi to you too. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here. So for those of you that are new, and that's not everybody, but if you are new and you are watching and you're not subscribed, you'll notice that you have no access to the live chat. If you would like to get access to the live chat to have something to say about Studio One and your usage thereof, then you will need to subscribe to the channel. I would recommend you do that now. And whilst you're there, select the all notifications bell as well. When you do that, give it 2 minutes, and most people say 2 minutes is kind of like an average duration of time. I mean literally 2 minutes, because I've set a 2-minute countdown. Then the chat will be open to you after 2 minutes, and then you can say hello, and you can ask your questions about Studio One and recording, mixing, and mastering, because that's what this show is for. And my chair has got caught on something. I'm not sure what. I'll find that out in a minute. So yes, if you are here and not watching, if you're not watching. If you are here, not subscribed, but you are watching, then please get subscribed, and then you can have your say. And I would love to read your comments out, and I'd love to answer your questions. So the format for this show, for those of you that are new and you don't know what this is all about, we talk about Studio One, made by Presonus here. And that's broadly the focus, but we also talk in general terms about recording, mixing, and mastering. And this is a Q&A show, so if you have questions about anything to do with any of those broad subjects, then get them in the chat and we will talk about those things and I will answer your questions. If I have something that you would like to me to demonstrate something, like, I don't know, how to use the chord track or something like that, then we can do that as well. So if you've got a specific question about usage of Studio One, or a particular feature you would like to see shown, we can do that too. I'm always game and up for those kind of things. Kyle is saying, click the like button. Yeah, so do that as well. So if you are here, you're watching, you're subscribed, or you're not subscribed, I don't care. Well, I do care, but in either case, please do hit the like button if you like what I do here on this channel. We are getting rapidly towards the end of 2025. This year has gone by in a flash, in my opinion. I know time is a constant and, basically therefore literally doesn't change, but our perception of time does change. Particularly if we are busy and we've got lots of things going on, lots of activities, lots of things happening, your perception of time tends to speed up. And so you think that the year has gone by in a flash. But if you are, there's not a whole lot of things going on, and there's a lot of autopilot things going on in your life, so there's not really a whole lot of, highlights, then your perception of the year probably would be that the year has gone somewhat slowly for you. We've all got our different perceptions. So, if you want to talk about that, then hey, I'm all ears. So, if you've been making a lot of music, please do say so. If you've been doing a lot of mixing, let's talk about that too. If you are interested in third-party plugin formats, like the new Clap format, for example, I don't have any Clap plugins installed. But we can certainly talk about new kind of formats like that, because I think it's pretty cool that they're doing this particular format. I also think it's absolutely freaking hilarious that they've called it CLAP. I know that CLAP actually is an acronym, and you know the letters actually stand for something. But really, my opinion, and this goes for a lot of product names and branding and design and that kind of thing, which I take a little bit of an interest in. My opinion is before you actually publish your branding and get it out to the marketplace, you should run it past 13-year-old boys first. Because, you know, if there is even you know, suggested smut or innuendo in your branding or your brand name or something like that, they will find it for you so you can, you know, rethink it before you actually go to market. And I don't think the good guys that you know, basically came up with the CLAP spec, I don't think they did that, unfortunately. They probably should have, because then they might have actually avoided that, because, you know, that CLAP is also a euphemistic term for a certain sexually transmitted infection. So, yeah, I would not be recommending that you either accidentally name your product after a well-known sexually transmitted infection. Although, that said, maybe because you have done that, maybe everybody starts laughing about it, everybody starts talking about it, and, you know, maybe there's some reverse psychology that means your product actually gets talked about and noticed a bit more because you've actually done that. It's not something I would recommend you take the risk over, to be really honest. Let's see. Just Bob says, is Presonus looking to get into a mastering plugin that uses AI integration for mastering? Some companies are starting to do this. Now, anytime somebody asks me a question that starts with, is Presonus going to do X? My answer is always going to be, no can tell. Because I can't tell. Even if it's not happening, I can't tell whether it is or isn't, okay? Because I am a company employee and am therefore under an NDA, so I couldn't even talk about that. So, however, suffice it to say, Studio One has its own integrated mastering page, which is called the project page, which is very, very cool. The implementation of it, I think, is fantastic because, unlike other software, it means that when you finish your mix and you send it to the project page and the song page are symbiotically linked, which means changes that are made in the song page can be updated to reflect in the master for the project in the project page without you having to, you know, constantly open the song, doing a new, you know, make your changes, do a new export. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You just make your changes and save the song. Then when you go to the project, it'll now have a nice little red wrench next to that song title. Because the project will go, aha, some changes have been made. There is a newer version of this available. Would you like to update the mastering file? And you say yes. You click that red wrench, it asks you the question, you say yes. It updates it for you. It's done. No other product on the market does this. And because of that, I'm actually literally amazed that there are not many mastering engineers that use Studio One for mastering. Because that to me is amazing that it does that. However, here's the caveat with it. And that is, it only works if you have mixed the song in the song page to start with. If you haven't, and you're just bringing in a WAV file from another software, maybe you mix in Pro Tools and you do your mastering in Studio One, there is no symbiotic link. That doesn't happen. It is only between strictly the song page and the mastering page. So if you are one of these people that does everything yourself at home because you want to keep costs down, and it's not in your budget to be able to afford a great mastering engineer like my good friend Smudge, and I think his company is called Progressive Sound Audio. He's not here, unfortunately, but I would love it if he was here so that we can actually maybe do a dedicated Sunday Night Live where we can actually talk about mastering specifically. So if you would like us to do a show that is specifically focused on mastering in Studio One, then we can do that. I will talk to Smudge and I will invite him as a guest, and we'll get him on here, and he will share all of his insights and knowledge as a professional mastering engineer, and the fact that he does it using Studio One. He is one of the few. There are some, but there aren't many. A lot of mastering engineers use, there's a product made by Steinberg called Wavelab that is pretty much it's kind of like the kind of industry standard for mastering engineers. Has been for many, many years. In spite of Wavelab's flaws and foibles and major issues, which it does have, which have never really been addressed by Steinberg, it's still the industry standard. It's kind of unusual to say that. But yes, mastering does often involve a lot of routing or routing through external hardware gear as well. I have a very good friend, another mastering engineer by the name of Brandon Olshouse, who is a mastering engineer. And he does use Studio One for his mastering. However, he does it in a very distinctly unique way. He does not use the project page. He uses the song page to do mastering, and I totally understand why. Previous versions of Studio One, the mastering page didn't have any volume automation or anything like that in it. But since version 6 of Studio One, you can use the project page and you can do all your volume automation in mastering there. It totally works now. He just hasn't had the chance or the time to upgrade. I've talked to him about this, and he says that he would totally upgrade if he just had a minute to stop and actually do it, which he just doesn't at the moment. He is an incredibly busy mastering engineer. Plus, he's also doing some charitable things as well. Charitable extreme duration bike rides for a bunch of charitable organizations, for which, my profound hats off to Brandon for doing those things. He is an impressive young man, that is for sure. So, if you want to get your songs mastered, Smudge or Brandon Olshouse, those are the two mastering engineers I wholeheartedly recommend to you guys to reach out to both of them and pay them well. So yes, so you folks that are wondering about AI in Studio One, here's my take on it. And I'm not obviously speaking on behalf of Fender or Presonus when I say what I'm about to say. I'm sharing my own opinion here, which is what I do on this show. However, when I do need to speak on behalf of Presonus or Fender, I always will start off by saying, I'm saying this as an employee. Okay? So that nobody misunderstands. So for right now, what I'm about to say about AI is purely my own personal opinion and is not reflective of the opinions or professional capacities of Presonus or Fender. Okay? So, my take on AI is that the whole thing is just a freaking fad, to be honest. I see AI cropping up everywhere. In fact, I was watching TV this afternoon, and in the middle of the program I was watching, there was a bunch of commercials, and I thought, you know what, great, I'll just go and get a can of Coke out of my fridge, and then I'll go back and I'll sit on the bed in the bedroom and continue watching my show. And I came back, and there was a commercial for dog food, and a dog food dispenser. It's AI. It's artificial intelligence in a machine that dispenses dog food. And I thought about this, and I thought, I'm seeing AI crop up in advertising everywhere. Like, oh, AI has designed this toothbrush, or this toothbrush uses AI technology, artificial intelligence, to figure out exactly the correct angle of attack for each individual tooth, specific to your individual teeth and gums. I mean, that's pretty cool if that's the case. However, I have my doubts that it really is the case. Most of the time when people are talking about AI, it's a marketing gimmick to make you buy their product, because everyone thinks AI is super duper more intelligent than a human being and is the be all and end all. It's like the number of times I see people who say, hey, I have this issue in Studio One, so I went and asked ChatGPT about how to solve my issue. And I'm just like, do you know what ChatGPT actually does? What ChatGPT actually does, if you ask about a Studio One issue or a Studio One feature in ChatGPT, what does it search? It searches the Presonus user manual, and it searches Facebook, and it searches the entire internet for anything to do with Studio One, and it will present you a bunch of answers based on your search string from the internet that you could have done yourself. Now, here's the thing with ChatGPT. Everyone thinks it speaks 100% the gospel truth about something. It doesn't. Especially when it comes to music production, and especially when it comes to using a DAW or troubleshooting a particular issue you might have in Studio One. It absolutely does not give you the right answer. It only searches databases to find things that basically relate to what you have asked. So if you are having an issue in Studio One and you ask the wrong question, or you make, you don't use the correct terminology, you maybe use your own way to describe things, it's not going to give you the right answer. It just isn't. And then if you then go and take what it says as gospel and you apply what it tells you to do, you can end up making your problem worse. Or worse than that, you could end up actually really seriously adversely affecting your work in Studio One. So AI is a big, big fad. It will die off. I know it's a controversial opinion because there's a lot of people out there that are doing a lot of statistical research. There's a lot of data points out there. There's a lot of analysis that's going on. And 100% my opinion is, for right or for wrong, I think it's just a fad that will pass. It's like Betamax. Do you remember those? Those of you that are old enough to remember when video cassettes were kind of the new technology, and you had VHS and you had Betamax, and these two competed and competed and competed. Who uses Betamax anymore? Nobody. In fact, nobody uses VHS anymore because the technology has been superseded. But right at that time, you had Betamax, you had VHS, and they were fighting for domination of the market, fighting for you to believe which one is the truth, and it was VHS that won out. How did it win out? It won out primarily on superior marketing and the fact that its backers pumped more money into it than the people that were backing Betamax. Is it, from a scientific point of view, is VHS a superior technology to Betamax? I don't think it was. I think it lost out because it didn't have maybe as sexy branding as VHS did. VHS was a little bit mysterious because not many people really knew what VHS actually stood for. But initially, when the two products were marketed in terms of actual technology and quality, it was pretty even Stevens. It was down to the marketing for VHS and the more money that was pumped into VHS that made VHS win out over Betamax. And of course, once it won out, there was a lot more very quick technological advancement with VHS. And yeah, eventually you could totally say VHS became much better technology than Betamax ever was. And, you know, as technology for VHS developed and the quality of tape got better and the quality of the devices for playback and recording got better, and the playheads were much less likely to chew up your tape, everybody was just looking back at Betamax and going, Betamax was pathetic. Betamax was terrible. So, yeah, my opinion is AI is just a marketing gimmick at the moment, and it will pass. It will pass. Do I think that software companies and DAW developers are not going to buy into it a little bit? Of course they are. To one degree or another, they will buy into it. Some will buy into it a lot. Some will, you know, like there is already a piece of software out there called Suno, which markets itself as an AI DAW. By the way, it's not really a DAW, but that's the way they are branding it. That's the way they are marketing it. And really, you know, it's, you know, that's an example of where a lot of investment has gone in to AI in music production, in Suno. And then there are other DAW manufacturers who have, you know, what they might have in their DAWs is a little bit of iterative AI, but nothing really major. And I think the DAW manufacturers that are making use of iterative and generative AI, it's more iterative than generative AI, are probably going to be the ones that win out. Basically, AI that helps you do things more efficiently in the DAW, but you still have to do them. Versus generative AI that actually generates work rather than you actually generating the work. So I think iterative AI, assistive AI, is probably where it's going to go. And I think that's what will win out. And I think things like Suno will just fade away into darkness. And that's where I think things will go. Will that actually happen? We're just going to have to wait and see. Excuse me. We will have to wait and see. But I think it's an interesting question. And I'm glad you raised that, actually, about AI and Studio One. Obviously, I can't go into specifics and I can't go into details. But, you know, I can certainly talk in general terms about where I think AI will go, where it will fit into the DAW world in broad terms. And I think that's where it's going to go. Iterative, assistive, but not generative. I think the whole generative thing will fall away. Chris says, I saw an ad for an AI plumber. Doesn't show up, doesn't work, and it takes too long. Yeah, and probably is not going to provide for much in the way of low-grade PORN content either. D-Sound says, the undo features Studio One, I've always wondered. This may be a daft question. There's no such thing as a daft question here. Could the undo be saved with the project? So when we load up the project, all the undos are restored too. No, that is not how it works currently. And it is highly unlikely that it ever will. However, if you want to be able to revert to a previous version, you can always do save to new version. So let's say you get to a certain point in your production. Maybe you've actually finished all the music production aspects of it. So the song is finished. All the production is done. You are now ready to begin mixing. You could do save to new version. And then you could put in the description, start off mix. And then you open that one and then you begin the mix. And then when you get to, maybe you finish the mix, then you can do save new version again, and you can basically do different versions of different mixes, and you can A/B compare between those by opening up the different versions of the song. And the cool thing is that everything happens inside the one song folder. So it's not like you are making lots of different new songs in Studio One. You're not. You're making new versions of the one song. So everything still references the same original source material and the same media, the same waveforms and everything else. So it all happens in the one song folder, but you just have different .song files within that are all kind of like the different versions. However, when I'm saying this, the thing to bear in mind is that the undo history will still not populate any of those. When you close the session, the undo history is deleted. It's wiped. It goes away. And you have no access to it. Why is this the case? Well, I believe it's to keep the file size and the cache data size down to a minimum. Because here's the thing. The more cache data you have for your song, and undo would be cached data, essentially, the more of that you have, the more the probability for failure for the song goes up exponentially. And also, the more the likelihood for cached data to either get accidentally deleted or corrupted. And when that happens, it's not a good thing and can actually do harm to your song. So that's why the undo history gets erased when you close the song. And then when you open it, the undo history is empty again, because here's the thing. It is just the undo history of that session with that song open. That's all it is. It doesn't store the data anywhere. It's just the undo history for that particular time that you have the song open. So whenever you do a Control S or file save, it saves the song as it is currently at that particular juncture, that particular point. But like I said, you can always do save to new version as well. So as you make progress and you decide, hey, maybe I've overdone it, it's fine. You can always go back, open up the previous version, and you can delete the new version, and you can go back to working from where you were in the previous version, for example. So you can certainly do that. But yes, the undo history is just on a per session basis. Great question, though. Mixmaster says, heard today Target and Walmart are using phone data to change prices on electronic price tags. Not sure if that's true or not. When I hear stories and rumors like that, they are mostly just bullshit, scare stories, to be honest. And they are conspiracy theories to scare people. Because the electronic price tags, like things like barcodes are printed on the item. So from that point of view, they cannot actually physically be changed by, just using phone data to do that. It's not possible. And when you scan the barcode, all that does is the scanning of the barcode just brings up on the cash register a record of what that item is and how much it costs. And that you have actually purchased that item. That's all it does. So in that respect, it can't be changed. It can only be changed on the database end, and really that's not phone data that does that. So I think it's extremely unlikely to be true, and as Ron says, if it was on the internet, it must be true. This is a thing. And, you know, this is actually, to be honest, one of the things I warned about when, you know, search engines started appearing on the internet. And among the first of those was one of those. It's not definitively the first, but it was one of the first. Was called Netscape, which was a web browser, and I used that quite a bit back in the early 1990s. And there were a couple of others, but here's the thing: as I saw search engines cropping up where you could actually just, you know, type in a string into a search box, and then the browser would then, you know, call up data that refers to the string that you put in, which is what we now call, you know, something like Googling, for example. It's hilarious to me that a brand name has become a verb. There's lots of examples of those. For example, there is a vacuum cleaner here in the UK called Hoover, and it was one of the first ever branded vacuum cleaners made by a company called Hoover. And so popular was this vacuum cleaner across the whole UK that instead of doing the vacuum cleaning, the brand name became the verb. So like today, you would Google something. Oh, I'm just going to Google this particular information. So back in the day with this vacuum cleaner called the Hoover, you didn't just do the vacuum cleaning, you did the hoovering, and it became a verb. A brand became a verb. That's happened a lot over time. And personally, it's one of those things that I think is both equally fascinating as it is hilarious. You know, the psychology behind how that happens is amazing to me. Let's go and see, because the chat just jumped like kangaroos in the mating season. Kyle says AI uses machine learning, but it hasn't learned enough about every subject to be able to make educated guesses. This is correct. It's machine learning. Now, one of the disturbing things I have found out about AI, and this was to do with two chatbots. They put two chatbots that were kind of in pre-alpha phase of development, and they put these two chatbots side by side, and they got them to talk to each other. Now, here's the disturbing thing that happened. These two chatbots got to know each other, got to like each other, and then they invented their own language that nobody understood. And it was at this point the two chatbots were nuked, deleted, removed. And as soon as I heard about this happening, I immediately started to think of Skynet from the Terminator film. And then I just saw an interview with James Cameron, who directed and wrote that movie, and you know the trilogy. And he was interviewed reasonably recently, and one of the things that he was asked about was the rise of AI, given the Terminator film, and he's just like, "Yeah, I warned you guys way back in 1984, and none of you listened to me, and here we are, kind of with the rise of AI." And of course, the Matrix movie in 1999, one of the things that talks about was giving rise to, the internet, and then that gave rise to AI, which then turned human beings into basically a battery. And it's an interesting premise. I think both films are kind of, they produce an interesting premise for thought. as to the value, intrinsically or not, as the case may be, as to whether AI is a good thing or a bad thing. Personally, at the moment, I think it has its uses, but I think it's got to be handled with care. Let's see. Rich Cresswell says AI in Yorkshire is known as I-up. A-up? Yeah, it most certainly is. Mixmaster says a composer / producer did a demo on the new Sumo Premium, which is $300, and says I give up. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I know some of my friends have actually used it to basically make a few things that they then bring into a DAW, and then they kind of build on top of that with traditional production techniques. I still don't like the idea of Suno at all. I just don't think it's a good thing. Let's see. Dave says, with the newest upgrade in Studio One 7, I ask if anyone had any issues in the VST saved as previously need to be rescanned or mapped. No, I've never had any issues at all. Now, here's the thing. One of the things you should know about what I do is that I do alpha and beta testing for Studio One. In fact, I do alpha and beta testing for most PreSonus products. And as such, if I say, hey, this works, it's because I kind of know it does. So no, none of my third-party plugins went walkies. I've seen maybe a couple of people posting that they found that when they opened a song, they got missing files errors because their third-party plugins had gone walkabout. No, I've not seen that happen at all. If it has happened, I suggest that something else has happened prior to the update, such as maybe the person in question has, done some tidying up on their computer and they've moved a few things around, or they've moved things around in their user data location without really thinking about it. They're doing it in Finder or they're doing it in Windows Explorer. They're not really thinking about the implications of moving stuff. If you move stuff, when Studio One is then opened after you moving the stuff, it doesn't look in the new location because it doesn't know the new location. It only knows the locations that you have set. So if you have told Studio One to scan for sound sets or third-party VST plugins in X folder and Y folder, and then you move all of that to A folder, then when you launch Studio One, it's not going to find what it expects to find in X and Y folders. So it will throw up an error saying, hey, I don't find these things. It does not know that you have moved them to the A folder. All it knows is they are not in X and Y anymore. This is how software programs work. They are incredibly logical. They don't know when you do something behind the scenes. It only knows where it has to look for things. So if you have it set to say, my songs are in this folder, my sound sets are in this folder, my third-party VST3s are in this folder, my third-party VST2s are in this folder, and you have all of those set, then Studio One will go, great, no problem. When I launch Studio One, I will look for all of those things as I start up. But if, when Studio One is closed, you then go, you know what? I think maybe the way I've got this set up isn't very efficient. Maybe if I just move all of those to over here. And then you open up Studio One again. Studio One says, hey, those things that are in these 3 folders, I don't find anymore. That's why you get missing files errors. You need to rescan. You need to tell Studio One where the new location is. And then you tell it, okay, I have moved everything. Studio One, pay attention. I have moved everything from X, Y, and Z folders to A folder. So here is the location for A folder. Then you hit the rescan button, and the rescan button tells Studio One, now go take a look, and you'll find everything there. And it goes, and it finds everything there. It goes, aha, that's where they all are. Here are all your VST3 plugins, here are all your VST2 plugins, and they're all in the browser again, where you expect them to be. So, this is the thing with software. You know, software only does what you tell it to do. Computers only do what you tell them to do. So if you tell them to do one thing and then you change the parameters of that one thing without actually telling it, then it doesn't know that you've done that. So you have to then tell it, hey, by the way, I've moved all of this stuff because I think it's far more efficient for me to have everything all in one place than in 3 different places. So if you've done that, you tell Studio One what you've done, and then Studio One will go find those things and everything will be fine. Yeah, Dave, I know you're not whining, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to explain, not just to you, but to everybody here, this is kind of how it works. You gotta tell people, you've got to tell Studio One where you've moved stuff. Right? Because it otherwise doesn't know where you've put them. It's looking in expected locations because you've told them that those are the locations. And Mixmaster is absolutely right. It only knows what you tell it. And if you do something that it doesn't know, then it's not going to know. Dave says I map my stuff to different drives. Yeah, so do I. I have my songs on my D drive. I have most of my sound sets on a folder in my C drive, but I also have some on my F drive. But the thing is, Studio One knows that they are all there. So they know that that's where they need to look. And so every time I start up Studio One, it looks in those same places and it finds everything every single time. I have not moved those locations in 12 years, and that's after at least 3 different computers. I've always had Studio One set up the same way, and therefore I've always set up my computer. When I've got a new computer, I've always set it up exactly the same way, so that whenever I start up Studio One, no problems. It's expecting my songs to be on my D drive, it's expecting my third-party VSTs to be in the same drive. It's expecting my VST3s and VST2s to be either in the default locations of the VST folder on my C drive, or the default location for the VST3 folder, which is in common files on a Windows PC. So it knows that's where my plugins are. It knows that's where my sound sets are. And even if I move everything tomorrow onto a new computer, a brand new computer, all of those same places will be all of the same places because I set every computer up exactly the same way every single time. Why? Because I want to reduce point of failure. Okay, Rich said to add common files and it perhaps solved. There you go. But here's the thing, the common files location is automatically scanned. You shouldn't have to add that to the scanning location because Studio One is designed by default to scan the common files VST3 location. It does that automatically. And Dave is all good. Okay, great. So you've now resolved that issue. Good. Excellent. That's what I like to hear. We've got 10 minutes left, folks. Has anybody else got anything else they want to say? Rich says, VST3 files are commonly stored in the common files folder. Yes, common files folder, and there is a VST3 folder in there. That is where VST3s need to go. And Studio One scans that folder by default. It's designed, it's actually hard-coded for it to do that. We did that in Studio One version 4. We actually made it hard-coded, so you didn't have to have the VST3 folder in the scanning location. Dave says he moves shit around. Yeah, you know what? There's a lot of people that do that, and when people move stuff, and they don't tell Studio One they've moved stuff, they get missing files errors, they get missing devices errors, which basically means missing plugins. So I see those every single day. And every single day I tell people exactly the same thing. Don't move stuff around. Keep stuff in the exact same locations every single time. Even if you get a new hard drive, label that drive the exact same way so that Studio One is looking for those files in the exact same place every single time. You reduce the possibility of failure. And then you reduce the possibility of those kind of errors cropping up. Because that's how those things crop up. Those things crop up because people move stuff. One of the worst examples of moving stuff around that I have ever seen in my whole life, and I think I have told this story before, so I will briefly give you a synopsis of this story, and that's this. There was this guy who, I'm not going to name him because he's actually a high-profile producer who has Grammy Awards to his name, so I'm not going to name him, so don't even ask me to name him because I won't. So this particular guy had been working on a couple of high-profile records, and he's a Studio One guy. He's been a Studio One guy since version 1, so that's what he uses. It's Studio One, and he's won a bunch of Grammy Awards for his music production work for these high-profile artists. And so what this particular guy had been doing for a couple of records, it was something new that he had decided he was going to do. It wasn't that he had always been doing this. This was something he decided he was going to do. He decided that he was going to create a new folder called Songs. And in that folder would only go the .song files. And then he made another new folder called audio files. And he decided that's where all the media folders for all of the songs would go. He would name them individually by song. So it was X song media files. And they all went in this audio files folder. And then he did the same for all the waveform data as well. He had another folder for that. And all the waveform data went into individual folders. It was like really, really highly organized. However, when he started opening these songs, he started getting multiple missing files errors, like hundreds of them, and all of the waveforms were gone. All that was left was the containers for the audio, but there was no audio and there was no waveforms. They were all empty, and he had missing files errors. He had like 500-600 missing files errors in a song. And I was just like, this is interesting. Is this happening on more than one song, or is this the only song? And he said, yeah, I've got 5 songs where I've got at least 500 or 600 missing files errors. So seeing as the guy is a high-profile guy, I said, hey, would you be happy with me remoting into your computer to kind of see if I can figure this out? He said, yeah, absolutely. So we set up a date, we set up a time, and I went and I remoted into this guy's computer, and I discovered what I just referred to. This new file management thing that he had been doing. And I said, I think I know what the problem is. I said this in the nicest way possible. I said, I think I know what the problem is. You've created your own file management system that Studio One doesn't use. It doesn't understand it. It's not designed to use a custom file management system. You have to use Studio One's file management system. And he goes, oh, so that's the cause of all of my missing files errors. I said, yep, that's the cause of all your missing files errors. So I said, look, I'll tell you what, I'll rebuild one of your songs, but you're going to have to do all the others. But watch me and watch how I do this. I'll explain this step by step as I go so that you've got a method for rebuilding all of your songs. It's going to take you a while, but once you've done it, it'll be fine. So I went back to the original song folder for one of the songs. And then I opened that, and I had that pinned open on his screen. And then I went and I found the media folder for that song that corresponded to it. And I took it, I drag and dropped it into the song folder. And then I found the image data one and did the same. And then I did the same for all the other folders that related to that particular song. And I did this all whilst the song was closed. And I said, let's reopen this song and let's see if it now resolves all of those missing files errors. So we reopened the song, and hey presto, everything was exactly where it should be. And he was just like, wow, I see what you mean. I said, yeah, the song folder has to contain all of the reference files for the song. You can't just put stuff wherever you feel like putting it. Doesn't work like that. You have to follow Studio One's file management system religiously, like it is a religious text. Think of it like the 10 Commandments of music production. Right? So that's what I told him. I said, so I've rebuilt one of your songs and we've saved it, so that now that song is fixed. You're going to have to go through and do the same for all the other songs, but here's the step-by-step procedure. Just go ahead and do that for all of your songs. So anyway, I thought nothing of it. And then about 3 weeks later, he reached out to me again and he said, hey, I've done all of the songs and all of the songs are working beautifully. And the records are now out. They have been released and they're doing pretty well. I was just, oh, this is great. Congratulations. I'm so glad. I'm so glad that, that this got sorted out for you. And I'm so glad it's all worked out for you. So he only went and won a flipping Grammy for that first song that I fixed for him. So anyway, so he wrote me back when he won the Grammy for this. He was just like, oh, he was so grateful. So I'm not telling you this story as a hero story, because I'm not a hero. I'm definitely not a hero. I'm telling you this story because it's important to make sure that you follow Studio One's file management system religiously, like it is the 10 Commandments, because as far as Studio One is concerned, it is the 10 Commandments. It is the law that it follows. And if you break the law, it will tell you you've broken the law. So don't do it. Don't break the law. Don't think you can get creative with file management and put things wherever you feel like putting them because you think it makes sense to you. It may well make sense to you, like it did to this producer. It made so much more sense to him. That's how his brain works. He had to learn you can't do that. You have to do it the way that the DAW is designed for it to be done. And the thing is, pretty much every DAW does the same thing. You have a song folder. Inside the song folder is a folder that has all the audio in it, and another file that has all the image data that draws the waveforms in the containers for the events. And they all do this. Reaper does it. Studio One does it. Cubase does it. Pro Tools does it. In fact, I would argue and Logic does it. I would argue that Pro Tools is probably the DAW that laid down some of that file management standard. Albeit Pro Tools is probably the clunkiest DAW in the history of DAWs, followed secondly by Cubase. But that's how DAWs work. You have a song, and the song works because it references other external files. And that's how it works. Nothing is actually stored inside the program. That's the other thing I see a lot of. People that think, oh, if I uninstall and reinstall Studio One, am I going to lose all my songs? I'm like, no, you're not, because your songs are not stored inside the program. in the same way that your Word documents are not stored inside Word. They're stored inside the Documents folder on your computer. So anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox. As much fun as it is. It's an important lesson to learn. And the thing, you know, the reason why I'm telling you this is not because I want to make Dave feel bad, because I don't. But I want to get across here that this can happen to anybody. It can happen to high-profile, award-winning producers as much as it can happen to a hobbyist that doesn't, you know, that's just getting into Studio One. They don't really know 100% what they're doing. So be aware, folks, of how you manage your files, because if you move stuff around, think carefully before you do. And then make sure you tell Studio One what you're doing, because it's not going to know until you do. And on that note, we will leave it there, folks. Right after this is the New Orleans Studio One meetup, hosted by Billy Morgan, the inimitable Billy Morgan. So if you want to get over there and carry on this conversation, you can certainly go over there. I won't be going over there tonight because I have a very, very busy day ahead of myself tomorrow, and I need to get a very, very long night's sleep tonight. But have a great time talking over there with Billy. Yeah, Dave, it wasn't you. That I will tell you. My story was not you. But that's funny though. So there we go, folks. Enjoy the Studio One meetup, and I will see you all on Wednesday for Songwriting Simplified, and we will carry on talking about songwriting, composing, arranging, and stuff like that. And make sure you're subscribed, because coming up in December is going to be the Christmas Songwriting Challenge, which we will kickstart probably in just a few weeks' time. So stay in tune and be subscribed to the channel, because not only do we have that coming, but we've also got the Christmas show. We've got the Hogmanay show at the end of the year as well. And we've got a lot more content between now and then. And then we'll be into 2026, which is going to be freaking awesome. So stand by your beds, everybody. Take care, and I'll see you on Wednesday. Good night.
Bye.